It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, one of the country's richest men tells Sky News the UK has been colonised by immigrants. Sir Jim Ratcliffe telling Ed Conway that Britain faces profound political, social and economic challenges, and immigrants are draining resources from the state.
The UK has been colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause... It'll cause... Well, the UK has been colonised by immigrants.
Also tonight, a murderer finally faces justice 15 years after killing her girlfriend. Anna Poredvona cut Izabela Zabłocka's body into pieces and buried her in the garden that they shared in Derby. Today she was jailed for a minimum of 21 years. Plus, reality star Louise Thompson is leading calls for a dedicated maternity commissioner and tells Sky News she will never be able to get over her birth trauma. And I'll speak to a teacher who says bullying, violence and truancy have all gone down after his school forced pupils to lock their smartphones away. All that to come, and much more on the UK Tonight. Sir Jim Ratcliffe, one of the country's richest and most influential men, has been telling Sky News that the UK has been colonised by immigrants who are draining resources from the state. The INEOS founder and part owner of Manchester United said the country is facing profound political, social and economic challenges. Among them, an unprecedented rise in immigration in recent years. He's been speaking to our data and economics editor, Ed Conway.
If you really want to deal with the major issues of immigration, with people opting to take benefits rather than working for a living, if you want to deal with that, then you're going to have to do some things which are unpopular and show some courage.
And has this government done that?
No, I think they I don't know whether it's just the apparatus that hasn't allowed Keir to do it, or he's maybe too nice. He's a nice... I mean, I know Keir, he's a nice man, I like him. But it's a tough job, and I think you have to do some difficult things with the UK to get it back on track, because at the moment, I don't think the economy is in a good... You can't afford... you can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause...
It's been colonised?
It'll cause... Well, the UK has been colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it? I mean, the population of the UK was 58 million in 2020. Now it's 70 million. That's 12 million people.
You met recently with Nigel Farage, didn't you?
I did.
Do you think that they would be a good government if they were to win the next election?
I think Nigel is an intelligent man, and I think he's got good intentions, but in a way you could say exactly the same about Keir when Keir came in. I think it needs somebody who's prepared to be unpopular for a period of time to get the big issues sorted out, would be my view.
Well, in that interview, Sir Jim Ratcliffe said that the population of the UK was 58 million in 2020 and is now 70 million. Well, according to the Office for National Statistics, the population in 2020 was 67 million. It was 58.9 million back in the year 2000. Well, within the last hour, we've been putting Sir Jim's comments to the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandi.
Well, I think there's two issues there. One is about the numbers of people coming into the UK through the immigration routes, and the other is the number of people on benefits. I'm always very conscious in any discussion about benefits that there will be people who desperately need the support of the welfare state, who will be very, very worried hearing anything other than that they will always have the support and protection they need if they need it. But I think he is right to say that there are too many people who we've written off, not allowed to make the contribution that they could make to this country. And we are particularly concerned about that as a government, especially when it comes to young people. We've got far too many young people who go into the benefit system at a very early age and never come out. And that is such a waste of lives and opportunity. And that's why we're investing in them to try and turn that around. When it comes to immigration, I think that people deserve an immigration system that they can trust. I think most people are very compassionate, and where people need safety and security, they expect Britain to play our part, and we'll give a warm welcome to people who need to be here.
Well, after his interview with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Ed Conway sent us his take from Antwerp in Belgium.
Really extraordinary choice of words from Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Worth just saying, first of all, he talked about in the year 2020, he said the population was 58 million. That's wrong. It was 67 million in 2020. It's got up by about 3 million or 4 million or so since then. 58 million was probably, he was talking probably about 2000, so the turn of the millennium. But nonetheless, the choice of language is inflammatory, to say the least, the idea of the UK being colonised. But more to the point, I mean, it's that overarching thing that clearly he is not happy with the government. He believes that more difficult decisions need to be taken. He believes that that's the model that he's chosen at Manchester United, taking difficult decisions, making him unpopular. He knows that he's unpopular in charge of Manchester United. And what's striking too, I mean, this was not the topic that we came to Antwerp to talk about. We came to talk about the fact that the chemical sector across Europe, including the UK, is facing a serious crisis right now. And that is the intervention that I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe would have wanted to have made. But these outspoken thoughts about the state of immigration and the economy more broadly in the UK are doubtless the ones that people will be talking about.
We're joining now Dr. Bernie Sebb, Associate Professor of Colonial and Post-Colonial Studies at the University of Birmingham. Really good of you to join us this evening. You heard our economics editor there, Ed Conway, describing the language that was used by Sir Jim Ratcliffe as extraordinary and indeed inflammatory. What was your reaction when you heard it in that context?
Good evening. Thank you very much for the invitation. I think to a large extent, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's statement is both provocative, political, but also powerful, because he wants to convey a series of dichotomies and divisions. And so this is highly political. It immediately brings to mind the division between colonizers and colonized on the one hand, between native populations and settlers. Colonization comes from the idea of undertaking agriculture, settling in the land, taking someone else's land, potentially, if there are already indigenous populations. And it also brings the idea, very powerful idea, of having those who are in power, the colonizers, and the colonized, who are the indigenous populations who are being subjected to an alien and foreign power. So this is very much both a political and a provocative statement, because for a long time, the UK was more actually sending settlers all around the world. Throughout the 19th century, there were around 10 million British settlers who moved around to countries as far away as Australia, New Zealand, the USA, South Africa, Kenya. And the idea implicitly is that today, actually, the wave is striking back at the UK. And in so doing, it is actually threatening to a large extent all the post-war narrative about migration to the UK and people, foreigners, just settling in and also adopting British values.
Yeah. To a large degree, many people watching Sir Jim Ratcliffe's interview will have agreed perhaps with the overall sentiment that the UK immigration is too high. But for some of the reasons you explained there, the connotations associated with his choice of word, colonised, given the history of the UK, will have felt uncomfortable. In fact, it will have felt very divisive. Given the history, how divisive do you think that word is? And is there ever a correct use for it?
Well, you know, as a historian of the colonial facts, I always use the words colonialism, settlers as well, and colonies in general, and colonization as well. But that very much belongs to the past. And it is useful when we refer to migratory movements from the 19th century, for instance, to understand how what has been called as the new Europes at the other end of the world, the antipodes like Australia, for instance, saw European societies blossom. But it's a very different story that we are dealing with today. And I think that to a large extent, it is anachronistic and it's not really appropriate, because it has to be understood as part of a wider conversation about the ways in which the colonial past is dealt with. Because to a large extent, it's a way of redistributing the guilt and now presenting the formerly colonized as being the colonizers. So to a large extent, the perpetrators are becoming the new victims as well. So I think that it's a heavily loaded term, and perhaps it works politically to try and create some divisions within the fabric of British society. But I'm not sure that it's something that is very historically accurate or that makes a lot of sense in 21st century Britain, which has navigated so effectively the waters of the post-war world, and is now in a position very much to integrate lots of populations and to adapt to the realities of the 21st centuries and those of migration. Because let's not forget that the 21st century is marked by lots of migrations, including that of Sir John Ratcliffe residing to Monaco and actually getting very close to my birthplace in Nice in southern France on the Riviera.
Yes, that has been pointed out, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe actually does reside in Monaco. That indeed is fact. Again, we've checked his facts when it comes to the numbers he was talking about concerning the UK population and its rise in immigration. We've checked that. He got his numbers wrong. He does reside in Monaco. But in terms of this use of language, how will it have made people feel, those affected by the UK's colonial past? Because I think, you know, while you may agree with his sentiment, using that particular language heightens it, is divisive, is damaging. How does it make those affected feel? I think it's really important to point that out, because some people will say, it's only language, it's only words, we get what he meant, but it means so much more than that.
Certainly, and there is obviously a national dimension to be considered. There are lots of British people of descent, of imperial descent, I would say, who were born in what used to be British colonies up until the 1960s or 70s, and who consider themselves British, but are aware of the circumstances that led them to the UK. And there is also the international position. Which naturally, especially among third world countries, the use of such a word will resonate very strongly and will be very much frowned upon. Although I imagine that it is done to a large extent also with global political shifts in mind, and the idea very much of emulating, for instance, a political movement that we have seen in the US of white supremacy and the reclaiming agency ceasing to present colonialism under a negative light. And I think it very much is part and parcel of this reevaluation that some circles want to undertake on both sides of the pond.
Dr. Burney said, really interesting to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much to come in and explain to us the importance of the correct use of that word. As you said, it's consigned to the past. Words matter, and, you know, even the government have said, Lisa Nandi, tonight, that, yes, UK immigration is too high, the number of people on benefits are too high, while the sentiment, you know, may be agreed with by many. The words are not agreed with, the words used. Words matter. Thank you for your time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you. Now, in other news today, a butcher who murdered her girlfriend, cut her body into pieces and buried her under concrete in their garden, was today jailed for life with a minimum of 21 years. Anna Poded-Warner, who previously worked as a butcher, waited 15 years before telling police that they would find the body of Izabela Zabłocka under the patio and claiming she had killed her in self-defence. Sky correspondent Lisa Dowd has the story.
I have fresh evidence. A body suspected to be Izabela Zabłocka has now been recovered from the garden.
For 15 years, Anna Poded-Warner claimed she knew nothing about her girlfriend Izabela's disappearance. But her arrest at her home in Derby last year came after she finally told police where her body was. In 2010, Izabela Zabłocka had left Poland and arrived in the city with her partner looking for work. But when their relationship deteriorated, Poded-Warner killed the 30-year-old. She used her skills as a butcher to cover up what she'd done, cutting up her body and burying it in their garden. Izabela's family, having reported her missing, asked Polish reporters for help.
We just want to find out what really happened to her.
Honestly, I really don't know.
Last year, a journalist spoke to Poded-Warner on her doorstep.
Do you remember when you last saw her?
I don't know. It was before the report, when the police were at my place. Maybe a month before?
It was, the court heard, this mounting pressure that led the 40-year-old to confess to police. But she claimed she'd been acting in self-defence.
I wanted to defend myself. I remember that something was by the window and I grabbed it, but she didn't let go. I was also strangling her. Then somehow when I hit her, she fell. She was dead.
Sentencing her to life in prison with a minimum term of 21 years. The judge said Podard Warner had shown no remorse for her cruel murder. And, she said, had Isabella's family not pushed for answers, her crimes may well have remained undetected. After the killing, Podard Warner thoroughly cleaned the room where she killed Isabella and removed all of her belongings from their home. Derbyshire police described her as a monster and are looking at whether they could have done more.
We will reflect upon our interactions with Anna back in 2010 and we'll look to conduct review after this is finalised to pick up on any learning that we need to. But I will just reiterate this. Anna lied to us, not just to us, but everybody else around her. And I think it's very difficult to expect people to make decisions and deal with information if they weren't privy to it.
Isabella's daughter said she always knew her mum hadn't left her on purpose and has spent her adult life trying to find out what happened. She may never get over the unimaginable horrors that Podard Warner inflicted on her mother. Lisa Dowd, Sky News, Derby.
Police have confirmed that they are in talks with prosecutors over the claims surrounding Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. The talks relate to allegations of misconduct in public office. Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills is in Saudi Arabia on the final day of Prince William's visit to the country, a trip that has been dogged by claims about his uncle.
This really is just a sign of how difficult it still is for the royal family to have any sense of control over this story. You might remember it was on Monday that we heard that Thames Valley Police were assessing some claims that have been put to them by Republic, the anti-monarchy group, relating to emails in those latest Epstein files, which suggests that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, during his time as a UK trade envoy, may well have been passing on information to the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. As a result, Thames Valley Police said they were then assessing allegations of misconduct in a public office. Now, the new update they've given us, they have said, as part of this assessment, we've engaged in discussions with specialist Crown prosecutors from the CPS. We'll provide updates as and when they're available, but at this stage it'd be inappropriate to discuss further specifics of this work. They also later on add that while we cannot provide timescales over when a decision as to whether a criminal investigation will be opened, we can assure you that Thames Valley Police is making progress as quickly as possible. Now, if you're not an expert in legal matters, often the reason that the police will approach the CPS is to try and figure out whether they have enough information to form some kind of criminal prosecution. So that's why they'll potentially be talking to the Crown Prosecution Service. The problem for the royal family, of course, is it once again blows up this story and draws a focus onto the Andrew and Epstein scandal. And it comes, of course, after 3 days in which Prince William was really just trying to focus on the job in hand while he was over here in Saudi. Today, again, they have tried to deliver some brilliant pictures that they hope to beam around the world. For example, him heading out to the spectacular setting of the desert of Al Ula, seeing the work that they're doing to encourage tourism, but also protect the environment. Also meeting up with some of the Crown Prince's team, again, to discuss and show off a really positive side of Saudi Arabia, but also the work of the British royal family. But really, again, we are talking about this Epstein scandal, and I think the fact that many people really want to hear more from the royal family. Now, one thing they have done earlier in the week is a statement from the King said that if they were approached by the police, they would, of course, assist in any way that they could. But in terms of giving any kind of statement on camera, I think we're going to be a long time waiting for that. I don't think that they feel they have any questions to answer at the moment. They keep trying to distance themselves from Andrew, saying that he is the one who potentially has any questions to answer from the authorities. After all, he was the one who maintained that contact with Epstein, not the wider family and not the institution.
Police say the teenage suspect in a double stabbing at Kingsbury High School in Brent yesterday was a former pupil. Two boys aged 12 and 13 who were injured in the attack are in a stable condition. Our correspondent Amelia Harper has this report.
What happened inside these gates is every parent's worst nightmare. Police on patrol at this school in northwest London after two teenage students were stabbed on Tuesday. Behind this fence is Kingsbury High School in Brent. Emergency services were called at around 12:40 p.m. to reports of a stabbing. The victims, two boys aged 12 and 13 with serious injuries. The suspect, a 13-year-old boy and a former pupil at the school.
My kids are scared, very scared. I'm shocked to hear such thing happening inside the school. No parent wants such thing happening inside a school where they send their children to.
The suspect is believed to have entered these doors at 12:30 p.m. before going to a first-floor classroom. As he opened the door, it's alleged he sprayed a pupil with a non-noxious substance. Police say he then stabbed the 13-year-old and, before leaving, stabbed the 12-year-old too. Hours later, he was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, found at a mosque in the NW10 area. Police say at this point we do not believe the suspect to have any particular connection to that mosque, and at this stage we think it may have been coincidental that he ended up in that area, and all of those at the mosque have been incredibly supportive of this investigation. At this time, the incident has not been declared a terrorist incident. Counter-terror police, though, are leading the investigation into the events behind these walls, while extra police patrol the roads around the school. Kingsbury High School is an academy with both an upper and a lower school for just under 2,000 students. Responding to the incident in a letter to parents, head teacher Alex Thomas said this was a deeply traumatic event for the whole school community. Words echoed by the Prime Minister.
My thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House, are with the two children stabbed at Kingsbury High School in Brent. And my heart goes out to everyone affected by this appalling attack. We thank the police for their rapid response. It's important now that we give them the space to pursue their investigation.
And as that goes on, police remain inside the school doors, while officers outside take dozens of witness accounts and a trawl of the suspect's devices. The two victims are in a stable condition in hospital after a crime, though, that's rocked this school community. Amelia Harper, Sky News.
So to come here on the UK Tonight, TV personality Louise Thompson leads calls for the government to appoint a dedicated maternity commissioner following her own birth trauma. And we'll hear from Sky Sports pundit and former Spurs midfielder Michael Dawson on who he thinks could replace sacked head coach Thomas Frank.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
TV personality Louise Thompson has today joined campaigners in calling on the government to do more to improve maternity care. The former reality star, who has experienced ongoing health issues since her own traumatic birth back in 2021, is campaigning for a dedicated maternity commissioner to be appointed to improve care and safety for new mums. Sky's health correspondent Laura Bundock has been speaking to Louise at the rally that happened in Westminster earlier today.
I believe that it's a big job. There's so much to consider, and I don't think that the Health Secretary has time to tackle the maternity problem in this country, which is now systemic, alone. And I think that the Maternity Commissioner would be able to methodically work through all of the recommendations to make sure that they are rolled out across the country and to change policies that have affected the lives of all of the people that are here today. It was really hard for me to talk about anything that had happened to me for a very long time. I hid behind my social media platform, occasionally posting within the first couple of years after having my son. And it was the outpouring of messages from other women that really spurred me on. And there were women who said, you know, I know that when you're better and when you feel okay again, that you're going to go on and do something that will make long-lasting change for other women. And I really held that close to me. I used to visualize, I can't believe I'm actually here. Like, I used to visualize a group of women marching behind me, kind of willing me on to get better, and it kept me going.
It seems it's an emotional day as well.
It is very emotional. You know, even as I came around the corner from the cafe that I was waiting at before and saw the first person that I recognized, there are people from all walks of life and people that I haven't seen for 5 to 10 years that are here. The first face that I saw, I couldn't hold back the tears, just because I know that everybody that's here has their own story to tell, and it's a club that unfortunately we're part of. It's the unluckiest club to be a member of, but at least we have each other.
And just finally, you're here, you're outside Parliament, you're taking a message essentially to Wes Streeting.
Yes.
What exactly is that message? What do you want him to hear you saying today?
Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but we want to meet. One of our missions has been to meet with Wes Streeting. And today, we had a message from him that he's going to meet with us. So that feels really powerful and slightly serendipitous. I feel like we're really on the cusp of something huge here.
Well, Laura's here with me in the studio now. And Laura, we've spoken to Louise on this programme before about her birth trauma and the life-changing effects it had on her and her young family. She's down there in Westminster today, sort of rallying support, because the notion of a maternity commissioner has been a recommendation from various reports and investigations into the state of maternity care, but throwing her weight behind it, what kind of support did you have down there today?
A lot. I mean, given it was a really gloomy old day with the threat of rain all day, a lot of women, a lot of mums, some bringing their babies, wanted to come and support her. I think, as Louise said there, what we are starting to see is a bit of momentum building. I think for so long, lots of people haven't felt able to speak out, and they're now starting to feel, and I put the emphasis on starting, that their voices are being heard, that they are being seen, and that perhaps politicians are now listening. So both Louise Thompson and the former MP Theo Clarke, who've both suffered really difficult and debilitating experiences with their traumatic births, are combining sort of political influence, social media influence, and creating something really quite powerful, which is what we saw outside the Houses of Parliament today. And interestingly, just before they gathered, Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, had texted Theo Clarke saying, yes, I will meet you and Louise in person. And of course, there's one thing on their agenda, and that is getting him to commit to the appointment of a maternity commissioner. Say you've got one for children, you've got a domestic abuse commissioner. We need a maternity commissioner, someone who can see through these changes and someone who can help restore trust in maternity services as well.
Yeah, the power of being noisy, right? All of a sudden, West Streeting takes that meeting. So that was happening in Westminster today. But there was another rally as well that you were covering. Tell me about that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's any coincidence we see two on the same day. So the bereaved Leeds families were in Westminster, and they're representing families who were failed by maternity care at Leeds teaching hospitals. Basically, numerous issues, really bad failings there have led to an independent inquiry. The families are very worried, though, as to who is going to chair that inquiry. So they were handing a letter in to Keir Starmer at number 10 Downing Street today, appealing for him to intervene and appoint Donna Ockenden. And that name is probably familiar to many. She is currently chairing the Nottingham investigation into maternity services there. She's previously chaired the Shrewsbury and Telford inquiry. They say she is the only person who knows what she's doing when it comes to the depth that is needed to be gone into when it comes to these sorts of inquiries. I caught up with one of the mums, Fiona Windsor-Ram, earlier today at Downing Street. She lost her baby daughter, Aliona, died in 2020, and this is what she told me.
Families in Leeds have got one shot at this, and we're not prepared to take some second-rate inquiry. You know, our children should be here. We have to be here to be their voices, because they would be shouting at the top of their lungs that they want to be here, and they're angry, as we are justified in our anger, that the life that they should be living has been stolen from them, and without a proper inquiry, those questions are just never going to be answered.
So it's very clear for them to have full transparency, full accountability with their inquiry, for it to do what it's set out to do. They really want Donna Ockenden in charge there.
She's so trusted in this field and so experienced.
She's up for it. She's up for it. Yeah. It's now in the hands of the Prime Minister, in the hands of West Streeting as well. But I do talk about this sense that momentum is building. And I think this year we've got the Amos investigation underway at the moment. We've got the results coming in from Nottingham as well. There is a feeling this could be a pivotal moment if the government makes the right decisions and if the government gets things right.
The Amos inquiry, of course, being that overarching national inquiry into these maternity services. Laura, thank you. We'll continue to follow this story closely here on the UK Tonight. Thank you. Still to come, I'm going to be speaking to a teacher who says that he has seen bullying and violence go down after his school forced pupils to lock their smartphones away. Now, teachers at 2 schools in Birmingham say the rates of violence, bullying and truancy have all dropped after they introduced a ban on smartphones. Pupils are made to secure their phones in magnetic pouches, which can only be reopened as they leave school at the end of the school day. Well, let's speak now to assistant head teacher at one of those schools, Wesley Lisby. Wesley, it's so good of you to join us tonight, because banning smartphones in schools and in general for under 16s is a really hot topic at the moment.
Yes.
And policies are mixed across the country at schools. Your schools have decided to tackle it head on and ban them. Talk to me about the plan you have in place and this device that you use.
Right, so came up with the brainwave to try and curb the system that was currently in place and the addiction, essentially, that young people have with smartphones and social media. We've seen anxiety increase. We saw cyber-related bullying, cyber-related fights happening constantly within our school. Teachers are reporting attention deficit within the lessons, a lack of engagement. So we had to do something about it. So essentially, what we did was met with the pastoral team. We looked at several different devices and we settled upon a mobile phone pouch. So the mobile phone pouch essentially blocks any signal. So the students place their phones inside the pouch. When they're coming into the building, when they line up, that we make sure all of their form tutors see it inside the pouch and then they lock it. They keep that with them all day. It's part of their equipment. So they're expected to place it on the tables and desks in every lesson. And then when they leave, providing they don't have a detention or anything, they can unlock it on their way out.
What was the initial reaction? Because this has been in place in your 2 schools for around 3 months now. What was the initial reaction from the children and from the parents when you brought this plan to them?
Well, so I was really hesitant and really worried about
I bet.
parents because I just thought this is going to be a massive battlefield. So what I did was lots of parental consultation. So met with them over several coffee mornings. I had a massive speech ready, had about 57 slides in my PowerPoint, got onto the first slide and I started announcing what we were about to do. And before I could even finish, the parents got up and started applauding. So actually, they were desperate for this.
Yeah.
They actually need the support as well, and they didn't know what to do. So they saw this as a welcome change. We did lots of consultation because some students obviously may need their phone for medical needs, such as students with diabetes, etc. So we put things in place for that, such as pouches with the Velcro strap, and made sure that our medical welfare officer has access to a paddle so she can unlock it at any time. But the overwhelming support we've had from the parents and carers has been absolutely incredible. We also consulted with our student council and reps as well. So they've been involved in the process. And at the end of this term and the start of next term as well, we'll be sitting down with our student reps, looking at our next steps as well to tighten up on a few more things and look at phase 3 of our policy, which will include whole year group scanning as well.
What's been the result then? Because you've seen incredible results, let's face it, in the last 3 months in terms of, the attitudes of pupils, truancy, bullying, all down. Was that an immediate effect?
So the first thing to plummet drastically were the cyber-related fights. So what would happen essentially is these students would be on their phones, arranging things on social media in these various groups, and you would randomly have on a Monday morning a fight. And then when you unpick all of the details, you realize that actually this was something that was accumulating over time on social media. With that removal of that element, the pressure amongst students to go on their phones, because let's face it, it is an addiction. If students were taking drugs, we'll deal with it. So therefore, this is another type of addiction. They're getting the same dopamine hit that they would get if they were taking drugs. We have to do something about it. And actually, we've made that decision for them. So there is no more pressure for them to constantly check their phones, because that's what it's about, isn't it? Yeah. That's how these apps have been set up on social media, so that they are getting that variation in reward effect and they do become addicted. Can you imagine So every time they check their phones, what do you think they ask us and tell us that they're doing? What do you think they say they're checking?
Gosh, I don't know, actually. What, the time?
Correct. You got it in one. Now, what do you think is in every single classroom?
Oh, yeah, clock. As a big clock watcher,
Exactly.
particularly in double maths.
And that's the reality of it, isn't it? These kids, sometimes they didn't realize what they were doing. They didn't realize that actually they are displaying addicted
Yeah.
methods, you know, and those things that they are doing, constantly checking that phone, we've removed that element for them. Now, what we did to allay their fears and concerns is, well, they have the phone on them all of the time in these
Yeah.
pouches. So actually, they're not missing the phone. They know it's there. They got that security blanket. And some of the major increases we've seen, so kids talking to each other at lunchtime now. We've got the students at lunchtime in the canteen talking to each other. Before, they'd be looking for an opportunity to check their phone, go on their phones and find out what's going on, how many likes they've got and how many comments. You'd
Yeah.
see students trying to sneak off into corners at break time and playtime just to go on their phone, not talking to each other. Now, we've got an increase in students playing football, boys and girls. We've got them playing board games at lunchtime. It is such a massive change in terms of the atmosphere as well. And one of the other stomping grounds that you had was when teachers had to confiscate phones from students. We don't have that anymore. That issue has been completely removed. So that has also improved the relationship between staff and students as well.
Well, do you know what, Wesley? This is going to be music to so many parents' ears because, you know, so many of the barriers is that some parents don't want their kids to have smartphones, but if other parents allow it, you know, you need everybody to be on the same page, and the school setting the precedent really helps the teachers. Having phones in an emergency and, you know, the value of phones, those were sort of some of the excuses used as well in terms of the kids keeping hold of them. You've sort of answered all of those. You're removing the harms associated with kids being on the phone during school and breaking the habits as well, which is really important.
100%.
And Wesley, we'll talk again, I'm sure. Thank you so much for your time here on Sky News. It's quite a remarkable thing that you've done. You're only 3 months in, and that's Wesley Lisby there, assistant head teacher at Heartlands Academy in the West Midlands. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Right, breaking news with regard to our top story this evening. The comments made by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the co-owner of Manchester United. He said that that the UK was being colonised by immigrants. This is from the anti-racism charity Show Racism the Red Card. Here we go. Show Racism the Red Card has put this out on social media, saying language of this kind echoes narratives that have historically been used to stigmatise migrant communities, fuel division and legitimise hostility towards minority groups. At a time when hate crime is rising and communities are feeling increasingly unsafe, public figures must recognise the weight and consequences of their words. Britain is a diverse society shaped by migration. Framing that diversity as colonisation is reinforcing harmful stereotypes and emboldening those who seek to divide rather than unite. We urge all leaders in sport, business and public life to choose language that promotes inclusion, respect and social cohesion. And the statement from Show Racism the Red Card goes on to say football clubs and their leadership hold enormous cultural influence. Their teams are full of players from countries all over the globe who are heroes to true supporters. Club influence should be used to challenge racism, not inadvertently amplify narratives that undermine community harmony. We've had a similarly strong-worded statement from football's anti-discrimination body, Kick It Out, on those comments by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. They've called them disgraceful, saying this type of language and leadership has no place in English football. This is their statement in full. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments are disgraceful and deeply divisive at a time when football does so much to bring communities together. In addition to the inaccurate figures mentioned, it is worth reminding him that Manchester United has a diverse fan base and plays in a city whose cultural history has been enriched by immigrants. This type of language and leadership has no place in English football, and we believe most fans will feel the same. That statement there referencing the figures that Sir Jim Ratcliffe quoted on the population of the UK and immigration figures, which were wrong. We have corrected them here on Sky News, seeking official figures from the Office Office of National Statistics. So that is two anti-racism charities saying they are deeply concerned over the comments made to Sky News by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the co-owner of Manchester United and one of the richest and most influential men, you could argue, in the country right now. Still to come on the programme. A Spurs sack head coach Thomas Frank after less than 8 months in the job. I'm going to speak to Sky Sports pundit and former Spurs defender Michael Dawson about who he thinks could take over.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand,
Whoa.
here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it. Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal? Not like you said it.
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
First Minister, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Nice to see you.
How are you feeling? Looking forward to getting into the parliamentary chamber.
Are you any further forward to making a decision?
I'm not. No, it's an important day today.
All of the claims were in line with my parliamentary duties, so I'm making that clear to you, Conor.
He was a Scot through and through.
He was a very good politician.
Alex Salmond was controversial, he was a disruptor, but above all, he was respected.
Will you resign if you lose this week?
Again, I'm not planning to, of course, lose the vote of no confidence. I'm planning to win that vote of no confidence.
His face said it all.
My intention to stand down as party leader.
This is now a storm with deadly consequences. How are they feeling?
They're a bit scared at the minute. We've been told to evacuate.
How are you feeling?
Devastated.
Hundreds of homes were wiped out by flooding. I'm Conor Gillis, Sky's Scotland correspondent.
It was probably the darkest time in my life.
Scott is 5 years sober after a cocaine addiction left him close to death.
Scotland has a shameful record. Worse than England, the worst in Europe.
Why not just say you failed? Because then you might get more respect from families who've lost loved ones.
This is where one of the UK's most prolific rapists thought he'd got away with murder.
Sky News can reveal that former sex workers had told police he was sexually violent.
My Emma.
Free wherever you get your news.
It's over, isn't it?
The Americans say he is Rossi, a fraudster.
This has been one of the most bizarre cases ever heard in a courtroom in this country.
A dangerous murderer.
Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive Andrew Innes after this?
She said she can forgive him, but as long as he's behind bars.
By doing the right thing, it's destroyed your life.
They terrorised me. They intimidated me.
I'm so grateful.
Sky News, the full story first.
Well, Thomas Frank has been sacked by Tottenham after just under 8 months in charge following their 2-1 defeat at home against Newcastle last night. Tottenham currently sits 16th in the Premier League, just 5 points above the relegation zone, and they haven't won in the league in 2026. Earlier today, I spoke to Sky Sports pundit and former Spurs defender Michael Dawson to get his reaction to the news.
Well, Michael Dawson, it's really good to see you. Really interested to get your thoughts on what is happening at Spurs at the moment. Last night's result, obviously the final straw, but given the run of results since the start of the year, not a single win for the club. Can you argue with this decision?
Good evening, Sarah-Jane. I mean, look, it's one of these that people say, was it inevitable? And I probably, when I went on Sky Sports News this morning, sort of went, no, I didn't think it was, because of the fact that when I go back a couple of weeks, when they lost to West Ham and they didn't sack him then, you're thinking, look, the board and the hierarchy decided that they wanted to try and keep Thomas Frank. But ultimately, after the game last night, we know there's been a disconnection with the players, with the fans, with the manager, and ultimately they've come to a decision where they go, this is untenable. They had to make a decision. And unfortunately for Thomas Frank, who I've been a big admirer from his time at Brentford, his time at Spurs, but ultimately no wins in 8, 1 win in 11 Premier League games. It just isn't good enough. And they've made a decision, and unfortunately for Thomas, he's gone.
Let's be honest, Dawes. As you said, Thomas Frank did so well at Brentford. They loved him there. They celebrated him there. He took them to the Premier League, kept them up there for 4 seasons. So he left the stability and structure of Brentford and came to, let's face it, the chaos of Spurs. What is it, 6 managers in 7 years? Do you think it was Thomas Frank, or if we're going to be frank, if you like, is it Spurs?
I think it's got to be collective. I really do believe this. You look where Spurs were last season, finishing 17th in the Premier League and winning the Europa League. You know, that covered up an awful lot of cracks, no doubt in that. Ange Postecoglou then loses his job. Thomas Frank comes in and I thought there was going to be a huge improvement. And, you know, Thomas has been dealt the hand that he's got numerous injuries. I mean, the list that I have next to me, you can go Pedro Porro, Bentancur, Danzo, Bergvall, Maddison, Kulusevski, Kudos, Solanke's come back, and Doggy, Odegaard unfortunately gets injured last night, which looks like it's going to be a long-term injury. So the list goes on. He was dealt that blow, but ultimately the players that were in the team should have been doing way better than what we've been seeing. Some of the performances haven't been good enough, and certainly results speak for themselves.
So what do we think at the moment? Do we think Spurs will be looking for an interim manager? Because they're 16th in the league table, 5 points above the relegation zone. At this stage, it looks like Spurs will just be happy to stay up and out of trouble this season. Do you think they're going to go for an interim?
I think that's a hard question, a hard one for me to answer. I think if they do, there's 12 games remaining. Whoever goes in has to try and galvanise this group, get some belief back, get some confidence and get the fans on side. Do I think that'll happen? Probably, because the fact that they're going to be waiting in the summer and there's a certain Mauricio Pochettino who will be, maybe after the World Cup, leaving the USA. And would that appeal to him coming back to a club that he had so much success? And people talk about success in winning things. You've got to remember what he did for the group of players, for the club, getting him in the Champions League, challenging for the Premier League. Yes, he didn't manage to achieve and win either of those, but he did a good job and the fans love him. So for me, if it is an interim come the summer, I do think of Mauricio Pochettino. If they think now is it possible to get a manager in, I look at someone like a Robbie Keane that goes and people go, what experiences he had in the Premier League? I get that. He went to Israel. He's been in Hungary, Ferencváros, and doing brilliant over there. Joint top in the league. Got to the knockout stages in the Europa League. So maybe they might look down that route. I'm not too sure.
Well, he'd be one to win the fans over, wouldn't he? I know you played with him at Spurs. He's a fan's favourite, so it's important to get the fans back on side because Thomas Frank just couldn't win them over. Robbie Keane is your choice. I heard Harry Redknapp on Sky Sports earlier said he's available for the interim gig. He didn't think he'd get it, but he certainly got the enthusiasm and said he's up for the job. So I'm backing Harry Redknapp for the interim until Poch becomes available maybe over the summer. Look, we'll watch this space and see what happens next, and I'm sure we'll talk about it when it happens. Michael Dawson, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
What do I know? I've got Jess in from the Sky Sports newsroom. She knows. Who's it going to be?
That's a great question. There's been so many that have thrown their hat into
Let's throw some
ring.
names around and see what sticks.
Shall we?
That's what we like to do.
So it seems that Spurs are going to go with an interim until the end of the season. The interim could be someone obvious, like the assistant coach who's already there, John Heitinger. He's got good coaching experience. He was part of Arne Slot's Premier League title-winning side last season with Liverpool. He is a relative newbie at Spurs. He only got appointed into that role less than a month ago, but that would be a straightforward choice. Another one, someone you mentioned when you were talking to Michael Dawson there, Harry Redknapp.
Oh, yes.
Imagine if he came back.
I mean, that would be the greatest comeback. He'd be a fan favourite. We haven't mentioned Big Sam. Sam Allardyce normally gets a mention about now, doesn't he? When it comes...
His name is not been thrown into the ring, although it usually is. But Harry Redknapp, he says, although he's approaching 79 years of age, he feels like a 39-year-old, and he would love to come back. The fans would love it as well. Another name for you as well, SJ, Marco Silva. His contract ends at Fulham at the end of the season. Doesn't look like he's going to renew. His stock is high. He might be a possibility as well.
OK, watch this space.
Watch this space indeed. And speaking of Marco Silva, his Fulham side are in action tonight in the Premier League, and I'll round you up on all the latest action in just a few minutes.
There's a reason why I've got a Premiership now.
There was a lot of noise around Alan possibly going to Manchester United and then Newcastle.
If you're asking me would I like Alan Shearer here, of course, who wouldn't like Alan Shearer?
Doesn't bother me at all it is talk.
There are only 2 clubs that are interested in Alan.
I spoke to Sir Alex Ferguson. The temptation to go to Man United was huge.
You name your price, you've got to be prepared to stick to it.
How much is it? Because that was a world record.
It's £15 million, making it virtually impossible for me to leave.
I think there was an inevitability that he would move at some stage.
For United! I will them, lads! We're breaking records. We're giving people hope again.
Be like 7:25, whose name and number?
I just had to come back home. It was my dream to play for Newcastle and score goals at the Gallagher.
A lot of people probably looked at us and thought we probably needed a couple of centre-halves. Not key.
Quick look at the weather now before we go.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
We can expect a drier, brighter and colder spell towards the weekend, but otherwise the dull, wet weather is going to continue. Disruption possible. Northern England and southern and eastern Scotland will be wet and windy this evening with mountain snow. Elsewhere, calmer with a scattering of showers and more general rain over southern England. That rain will clear east overnight, while rain and hill snow in the north will ease. Elsewhere, dry for a time by the odd shower, but northern and central parts of Ireland will turn wet again later.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
That's all from the UK Tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8. See you then. Up next is The World with Yalda Hakeem.